Please welcome to the stage
Thanks,
COO of Quantum Gears, Rizwan Mallal, and Executive VP of Technology and Operations at Blue Cross Blue Shield, Bill Fandrich.
Yeah. It's open, yeah.
A lot of healthcare.
Bill, good to see you.
And even like a lot of people in the audience.
Riz, how are you?
All
right, I'm going to sit over here. Why don't you guys sit here?
I didn't know, or it's just
Riz,
because
why
we're
don't
in Boston.
you sit on the other side of Bill over here? Be great. Thanks. All right. Well, thank you. That was just amazing, huh?
I'm field CTO.
I was fascinated by Dr. Halamka talking about it took him 5 years to get his data platform and so forth together. And I would just like to start with a question to you, Bill. We're going to talk about how Blue Cross Blue Shield and Quantum Gears have partnered together to create one of the most, I think, active platforms with over 115 active agents in real operational setting. And the token explosion and potential cost explosion that can create if you don't get it right. But I want to start with the beginning of your journey. And I think we have a slide here that can talk about it.
Sure. Thanks, John. And I think it is a journey. And let's also, much of this data challenges started way before AI really took off. I think there's a couple things. One is there's never, ever an ending to try to deal with our challenges with structured data and the ever need to actually add to that data, whether it's social determinants of health or other aspects around our behaviors of our members and our providers, et cetera. But the other challenge gets into now unstructured data. So we've been on this journey. A lot of it was unstructured, but I think one of the biggest opportunities when generative AI came up was like, oh boy, we have an opportunity to deal with what has always been almost impossible and not financially viable task is how do I deal with unstructured data? It comes from all different sources, as John just went through in the previous discussion, and being able to do that in a very different way under dimensions of time, relevancy, and then events that would need to be triggered. So you're building another type of mindset around governance of data in the non-traditional way and marrying that with structured data. That was a big part of the Gen AI focus. And if you go to your discussion earlier around orchestration, you've got to embed all that stuff into workflows, in APIs, and all sorts of other things. So you've got to have that foundation. Not waiting till it's all done before we introduce change.
Yes.
But now we have agents sitting on top of this unstructured data helping us constantly analyze what these things. A lot of it's been on contracts and benefit information, but it's the learning process and the journey.
Yeah, and for folks who don't know, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan is a $35 billion organization. You can see the number of contracts and health systems. It's over 5 million people served. And also, this is an industry where if you get it wrong on the data privacy issue or so forth, they're a little more strict than they are with Wall Street. You might be wearing orange for a while in terms of the implications of that. So this is especially around payments and capabilities like that. And so you had a similar time frame in terms of about 5 years to make that work.
And I think the other thing is going into this, certainly you want to support innovation and getting workforce adoption, but you also need to see ahead. We're going to be called to order to explain when we start using this information, are the controls effectively there?
Right.
We've got HIPAA, we got in our case high trust. Can you demonstrate, if you have issues, is there forensics to support that? How do you ensure the integrity and the quality of the data? How are you making decisions over there? All that has to factor into your platform. And that was designed from the beginning. And versus just saying, let's buy a bunch of tools and see what we can create.
Yeah, and back to the model that I introduced in the morning, this is what I mean about when you go to level 3, really having that platform for scalability and capability. It's a very different animal than when you're just starting experimentation and innovation, that kind of capability. The other thing, I'll turn to Riz here in a second. So Quantum Gears is a company that knows a ton about APIs and application program interfaces, if you will. And when you think about being inside a large organization, you have to be able to plug into those systems in an effective way in order to be able to scale without killing your economics. What I'm showing you here is something that when I talk about third stage companies and what it looks like, many people, for those of you who are following it, are talking about agents. Nobody, as far as I can tell, is showing a graph like this. And what you're seeing here, this is a number of unique users, and then the total tokens that are used. So this is the token explosion that happens when you start to have agents, because very simple queries like a database query, hey, look up this customer or whatever, now becomes a conversation, becomes very chatty. So you go back and forth and back and forth. And so for those of you who are investors in this area or whatever, you start thinking about, there is a token explosion coming as silicon intelligence starts to manage these conversations inside organizations. And Riz, I'd like you to talk about, because these folks are doing the token engineering and the value engineering for silicon intelligence inside of a live organization.
So thanks, John. Token explosion to me is synonymous with token stress, mental stress, obviously, stress on your corporate wallet and stress on your compute. So what we see here and what we experienced was two inflection points. One is we saw token usage or consumption going up when we trained the members of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. You saw that inflection point. But what's counterintuitive is when you look at the graph is the actual usage per user went down in terms of number of users, but the token usage went up when in May of this year, we started engaging agents. And that's when we saw the explosion of tokens going up 50x. So we went 3 million tokens last year in September 2024. And this month alone, it's 150 million tokens.
Think about that, a 5,000% increase. And then, if I understand these graphs right, so you hear on the lower graph, it's the number of unique users. So you peaked, about 5 months ago, right? And then that falls off, but token volume keeps going up.
Absolutely, and why? What is the reason? The reason is these agents are based on a looping construct. So they make iterative calls, and if they make a mistake, they again re-engage the LLM, and then they build a history. And that's one reason.
Yes.
The second reason is the LLMs are becoming more sophisticated. You have thinking LLMs, reasoning LLMs that are generating more tokens per query. So you're in a congested environment where you have chat boxes getting engaged, you have ingestion agents, you have real-time autonomous agents that are actually getting engaged now in real time, and you see this problem on an explosive trajectory.
For those of you interested in what it really means to go at scale, this is a conversation that we do not see happening in the marketplace at the level we think should, and we think actually this year coming. Because what's happening as more and more of tasks get into silicon intelligence and digital becomes a bigger part of your cost base and AI becomes a bigger part of your digital base, these dynamics, and for those of you who have talked to people who are in level 3 or level 4, the technologists and the operating executives are shocked by the bills they're getting from Google and the other suppliers because this token explosion happens. And could you?
Yeah, so let me add to this is per token cost has gone down. NVIDIA and all these vendors will sell you on that. We all buy that. But overall, because these agents have a voracious appetite for token generation and obviously consumption, the price overall to the enterprise customer has gone up. If we rewind the clock back to the 1990s, remember they used to sell us on that notion that, hey, memory is cheap. Memory per gigabyte, it's really, really cheap. But then we had the advent of Java applications, XML workflows that had amazing appetite for memory. So overall, per cost on your server, we were spending more money on memory. So the memory per gigabyte. So same analogy is per token cost has gone down, but you're generating more tokens, you're consuming more tokens, and that's why the cost overall is going to go up.
And Bill, a specific question. Could you speak to how you think about the partnership with Quantum Gears? Because Quantum Gears, as a supplier to Blue Cross Blue Shield, assumes the token risk. It's very interesting, very different from a lot of suppliers. So can you just talk about how you've thought about it?
Yeah, I think we had an idea of the challenges ahead. I mean, it's way different from the implications are even more significant than all the buzzwords that were cloud will make you cheaper and eliminate half your IT costs. Show me an IT department that's half their cost. Because it just transitions you to be able to do things different. So when we looked at this, we're like, this is coming. And then each new tool, because many of these tools they're probabilistic. They use different permutations, they look at different calculations that all consume more. And we knew that we needed to put some guardrails in. And so working with them said, we don't know exactly what we're getting into, but let's start designing the guardrails and protect ourselves from unaware costs. And as my CFO says to me, oh, this is pretty good. We haven't seen a big IT budget increase with AI. I said, whoa. It didn't happen by accident. And you haven't seen anything yet when we see the really use of it broader in the organization. But we started to find these parameters and say, how do we protect ourselves while we're learning, but we want to get it out there. And we want to get in a protected, safe way, doing real business things. And we picked this. I mean, I'm not going to say that there was no one out there that could tell us. So we said, well, pick tokens and pick users, and we'll manage through that. And we're constantly tuning that without having to, we have yet to have to increase our cost, even though that's growing significantly.
And how did you think about that from a partnership and a negotiation standpoint and so forth? Because you didn't have an IT budget where you could have, the kind of variable cost on the top end.
No, we didn't. We had no budget. And so we had to save elsewhere to redeploy in this, which we did. But I think it's the same. Part of the reasons with the contracts GPT, which sits on top of this intelligence, is we need to understand, because it's once you get into broader orchestration, you're going to start affecting your cloud costs, you're going to start affecting your API costs. All depends on your vendor landscape and what you're paying based on consumption. How do we solve these patterns that are going to start impacting those downstreams? We need to be able to model that out and protect ourselves. So that was part of the relationship, is building more intelligence so we can go to the next step.
Yeah, I think that this, for us at GI World Insights, this is going to be a huge issue for businesses as they get into phase 3 and phase 4. And this notion of tokenomics and engineering, the economics and risk, who owns what risk? And are you going to be building things yourselves? I know Dr. Halamka has over 800 Blackwell chips from NVIDIA, so that he can both keep his costs down, but also control access and speed and capability. And you guys worry about that as a partnership, and really made that happen. And how do you think about it, growing your business? I mean, how do you think about managing that risk?
So either you do it brute force, which is add more Blackwell B200s, H100s, or you think of it intelligently. And I'll share a story from one of the Bill's technical team members had a PowerPoint agent that they engaged, and they had to do a demo to the exec team, and they came back bringing fire on me that it was taking 4 minutes, 5 minutes for the demo. Why did it take so long? And so I'm like, okay, let's solve this problem. Now we could have solved this problem by spinning more LLM models, and this in AWS, it takes 5 to 7 minutes to bring up a model, but let's do this intelligently, and let's do traffic shaping. So we did not spin new LLM models. What we did was we said, okay, if you have other agents ahead of you in the queue, you can bypass it, called jumping the queue. So what we did was we went back, did our homework, and started classifying these workflows.
Yes.
Which workflows are mission critical, which workflows are business priority, which are standard priority, which are batch priority. And now, for example, we classified PowerPoint agent, the PowerPoint BI agent, as mission critical. If you're obviously demoing it to Bill, he expects it to be done within real time, within a minute. I think you can be patient for a minute, right?
Exactly.
Before you throw a fit. But so what happened was, when you engage that Power BI, we know which group it belongs to. It's tagged as mission critical. It can bypass the queue. And so we didn't have to spin the LLM model. And so not all agents are created equal. Not all tokens are created equal.
Yes.
You can actually do the classification, unlike the usual suspects who do this rate limiting, where you're just moving up the tier and just adding the cost. So we don't want to pass that cost to Bill because he's going to push back on it and said, you guys solve it intelligently. So we did this traffic shaping. The second thing is sovereign AI. It's all about AI autonomy. It's synonymous with control. Is how much control you give to the enterprise customer in controlling their destiny in terms of compute, of activating or deactivating GPUs, what LLM models, SLLMs or large language models or reasoning models they want to engage or activate and deactivate in terms of data sovereignty, how much control they want to keep it close in terms of caching and all that. And then the third is talent sovereignty. Obviously, theoretically, there's no nation or enterprise can claim 100% sovereignty. Neither can NVIDIA, because they get their chips from TSMC, right, from Taiwan. So, but you have to push that envelope, that spectrum of autonomy, because that's how you will control your cost.
I know we're out of time. I just want to get one quick piece of advice to anyone thinking about this who, as their organizations actually deploy at scale, from the business standpoint, what's the one thing you want people to understand, Bill?
I think the most important thing is you've got to engage your stakeholders. One of the biggest things I'm working on now is with our finance group to saying, you need a very different model, how we look at investments in AI. You need to understand, we need these monitoring and the data facts to do that. Be real careful when we just federate this and let people do what they want on their desktop, because you've seen no costs on shadow IT are going to balloon uncontrollable. And just because you have 10 agents, and that's good, 1,000 doesn't mean it's great. There's a whole governance around this. So I think as you're moving to scale, it's a different game. And where we're used to doing economic modeling around investments and then the ongoing cost associated with those investments, this thing is going to blow that model out. I mean, you're going to see 90 to 100% cost increases in some areas. You better understand your ROI. And I don't think most corporate America is not wired to think that way.
Riz, what would be your one piece of advice to that leader?
Don't underestimate the agents. You'll have explosive growth in the usage of tokens. And be intelligent in deploying these agents and do your homework.
All right. Well, thank you.